All right. Um, I believe we're recording. Is that correct? Yes, we are. All right. So today we're going to be talking about work-life balance. And we're not just talking about work-life balance, but we're going to be talking about it around prioritizing it and as to what matters in 2025 going forward. Now, what does work-life balance mean? I am curious to hear what anyone wants to share. What does it mean? Well, we've heard that term, especially since COVID and even pre-COVID, but I think it really spiked after COVID or during COVID. And it's been one of those trending conversations, especially if you pay attention to trends around hiring, HR, DEI, all of those things that are very important in organizational development. So who just wants to give us an idea as to what life balance is? And feel free if you're one of those people who is shy or you don't want to speak up, feel free to toss it in into the chat. Are people still celebrating Christmas? The ability to stay organized, attend to commitments without losing self-care. That is excellent. Thank you, Amy, for sharing that. Any other one? Okay. People are very shy today. It's everybody's thinking about 2025. All right. So today's conversation, because I pay attention a little bit to the audience that joins us, and please, if you're joining us from a different part of the world, just let us know, and I can recognize that as well. The point I'm trying to make here is that this message or this session for today is very geared specifically to specific regions: Rwanda, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, and of course, for the few people who are joining us from the United States as well. First of all, I think it is important for us to understand how globalized and how important it is that we have to bring about a work-life balance. Now, in the last few sessions that we've had on here, we've talked about everything from prioritizing your finances. We've talked about how to be able to bring about, pay attention to your health, talk about how to operate in a high stress environment, which was a session that we did that was very, very specific to people who are calling in from Nigeria. But today, we're just expanding on that just a tad little bit because you have to understand that with things like remote work, cultural differences, the impact on your work-life balance in these different countries that we've talked about will impact several things. They will define what we pay attention to. It will define how the environment impacts us. It will also define what we need to equip ourselves with as individuals who are trying to think strategically as we go into the new year. What are the things that we need to prioritize that will help us not only professionally, but also personally? Am I connecting with you? Thumbs up will be good, at least. So, having said that, let's look at a few key ingredients. And I think that this is the meat of the matter, and we want to try and keep today's session short and sweet. Let's look at a few key ingredients that are very important for each and every one of us to pay attention to, especially as we start navigating the new year. The first thing is that I think it is important for you to sit down. Number one, it is important for each and every one of us to sit down and define clear personal and professional priorities. Very clear personal, professional priorities. And the way I would like us to engage today is as we're having the conversation, you can walk and chew gum at the same time, meaning you can listen and start thinking and processing the information. Because oftentimes, I think research has shown that close to about 97% of people do not do anything with the information that they receive if they do not act upon it in real time. So the question here is, what are 4 things that you need to prioritize in 2025 that are very important, not only to your personal and professional well-being? You've got to be clear on what it is that matters to you. because we're all individuals. Everything is different. The environment in which you operate in is completely different from the environment that I operate in. Right now, we're all in different time zones. Physically, mentally, we're thinking different compared to those. The way Omo is thinking about this being in the United States versus me thinking about this all the way out here in Africa is completely different. Why? Because our bodies react to our environment. And we also know, especially for those of you who've attended PTN, that 50% of your success factors are determined by the environment that you're in. What do I mean by that? It doesn't matter how much of a genius you are. If you don't know how to swim, you will not make it in any body of water. No matter how great a fish looks, no matter how brilliant it operates in the sea, you put it on land, it loses its genius. So your environment is fundamental to ensuring that you're successful. And so the question here is, what are things that are important to you? Why do you go to work every day? When you wake up in the morning, what drives you? What is your passion? What fuels your existence? We often talk about what we call the 5 Fs. I'll not go into that intentionally, but we'll talk about things like family. We talk about things like finances. We talk about things like fun. We talk about things like our future. All these elements combine, it doesn't matter who you are, touches you in one form or the other. And lastly, we talk about the fundamentals as to who you are, the essence of your being. So what are the things? Is it fitness? What is your thing? What is it that enables you to keep going every single day? Because we often know that if you don't have life, you won't have health. I mean, if you don't have health, forget about life. And if you don't have health, you have no wealth. Because even if you had so much money and if you're ill, you can't enjoy it because all you're just thinking about is getting well. What are the things that are your priorities? So as we'll just take a minute here and pause while I'm talking, you think, what are my most important priorities as I go into 2025? Is it making more money? Is it stabilizing my family? Is it traveling to see the world? Is it building on my future, staying fit, staying healthy? What are your key drivers? What are your priorities? And you've got to be very, very clear as to what it is that you want to accomplish going into the year. Now, while you're doing that, let's discuss the importance of aligning your actions with those personal values and those personal actions. I will talk a little bit about those, but as I'm discussing this, I would like you to start thinking about, you've come up with maybe 3, 4 priorities. Please try not to make it more than 4 or 5 that you want to prioritize during the course of the year. It's very easy to come up with a list of 30 things that you're going to do when we all know that chances are you're not going to get to number 5. So identify 4 key things that you must prioritize. And remember, I gave you the 5 Fs, which can help you. Is it your fitness or your health? That's your health. Is it your family? Is it fun, traveling, doing whatever it is that excites you? Is it your finances? What is it that matters to you? The essence of who you are, your fundamentals. Is it your passion? Is it your calling? What is it for you? Think about those things. And then next, we're going to start thinking about what are the important actions that one needs to take in order for me to align myself with these priorities that I'm trying to accomplish. Something to still be thinking about. Thirdly, and we're still talking about how to define your personal and professional priorities. We're still on that first topic. Thirdly, discuss the importance of not only, you take the moment to think about this, and if you have to discuss it to somebody around you, that is great. But at the end of the day, you have to highlight or identify or differentiate what is a work-based culture or a societal expectation across the region that you're calling from. Let me give you a simple example. There are certain expectations if you live in places like the United States. That is, you're supposed to be at work at a specific window in time. Maybe it is 9 to 5. You cannot just stroll into the office at 12. If you have a meeting that is supposed to start at 8 o'clock, oftentimes you'll be expected to be butt in seat by 7:55. What are those societal expectations for your specific region? Because we cannot always transpose certain actions, certain expectations, certain behaviors from one part of the world to another. Because at the end of the day, what is really going to count is how your actions align with the societal expectations where you are to ensure that you're not only checking off the boxes on the cultural norms that impact you, but also that you are able to be successful and have peace of mind in everything it is that you do. Has everybody on the call had a moment to think about 3, 4, maximum 5 expectations or areas that they want to prioritize on the call? I see a thumbs up. Some more thumbs up will be great in order for us to move on. Okay, moving forward. The next thing I want to talk about, the next important thing you need to prioritize, besides being clear with regards to what it is that you want to do, is that you need to pay close attention to time management and setting boundaries. I like this one because I'm going to talk about it just a little bit. If you've attended any private transformation network training, it doesn't matter if it is a 36-hour retreat or you've attended one of our open house sessions that's probably just a couple of hours, or you're one of those who are in the lifelong mentoring program like Victor, who's been with me, at least who's been part of the continuous training for the last, I don't know how many years, 7 years maybe, or more. Only God knows. I mean, everybody has joined in a different time, but it doesn't matter what degree of commitment it is. You realize that one thing we emphasize very heavily on is time management. But in this time, I also want to talk about boundary setting. Why? Because if you lose time, you lose your life. Life is the measure, time is the measure of life. Your successes, your victories, anything you accomplish, the quality of your life experiences, everything is bordered around time. But the thing about time is that it can be stolen, it can be abused, it can be misused. You just find something that does not add direct value to it. There's a way that it can be stolen away from you. So it is very important for you to start thinking about how best to manage your time effectively to ensure that your time is not wasted, because time is either invested or it is spent. And when I'm talking about spend, I'm not talking about, you just burning daylight. That is part of it. But what I mean by invest is that there are certain actions, certain things that you will do that will indeed truly bring about a return on the investment of your time. Let me talk within the context of Africa. It is normal for us, somebody to say, Mike, I'll see you tomorrow. And it always surprises me when the person does not even say what time and for how long. And even if the person was forthright enough to say, what am I expecting you? He says somewhere between, I don't know, 3 to 5. So for those 2 hours of your life that you will never get back, you are expected to just sit down, twiddling your thumb and hoping that someone will knock your door. But I even love this one even better. When they tell you that they'll come up at 3 o'clock and then they show up at around 6. And you're like, bro, look at the time now. You're like, it's Africa now. It doesn't matter what part of the world you're in. If you're in Africa or you're in the United States, 2 hours is still 2 hours. You still have the same 24 hours to invest. So we don't have a sense of urgency. We don't have a sense that this is life. It is a spend. It is a use or lose it approach. Because today I did something really interesting. I was going through some old pictures and I began to look at my photos right from 1998 when I first came to the United States. I kind of like started looking at a progression year after year, what I looked like in 1998. And then I looked at myself in the mirror in 2024. I say, time don't pass. What have I done with that life that I was freely given by God? What have I done with that life? What have I achieved? What have I accomplished? Knowing fully well that while I am reminiscing over the last 25 years, there is still another 25 years or more, God willing, ahead of me. What am I going to be doing with it? Am I satisfied with the quality of life that I've experienced, that I have built in the last 25 years, not to talk about the previous 25 years, up to date? Time is a determinant. It's a key ingredient to anything it is that we want to do. It doesn't matter if it is our work or if it is personal life balance that we're looking for. Time is life. So, having said that, there are a few things that you can do to manage your time. Number one, you've got to be very, very time conscious. And I can't say this enough, meaning if anybody tries to get on my calendar, you will notice that you can't find more than 30 minutes. It doesn't matter what day of the week it is that you want to schedule. You will find out that you can't have more than 30 minutes. Why? Because I strongly believe that 30 minutes is plenty of time to discuss whatever needs to be discussed, understand, and find solutions. So how do you block and manage your time? Are you even conscious of the value and the quality of your time? Or are you just an open book and let everybody just walk in, come in, leave whenever they want? And there are certain things that I pay attention to when it comes about the boundary setting piece of it. If I give you 30 minutes and I feel that there was quality in what was done or what was discussed, I have no problem expanding that by another 30, 45 minutes or even an hour. Why? Because I am investing that time, maybe not directly in my own life, but in the life of the individual who I'm speaking with, because that is a gift that keeps on giving. Or do you want to spend the first 30 minutes greeting me and asking me about my chicken at home that I don't even know exists? And Africans, we do that. Ah, how are you? How are the children? It is well. Ah, how is the family? How is the wife? It is. Ah, praise God. I've not seen them in a while. In fact, on my way here, do you remember, Victor? I saw. What has that got to do with the 30-minute block that we have to discuss something important? So it is so important for you to be the one. You are the only custodian of your time. Nobody else is. Nobody else will, and nobody else should. You determine who has access to your time, because there's one lesson I learned about 23 years ago from Dr. Mike Murdoch. And he said, the greatest gift any man can ever give you is the greatest gift any man can give you is the gift of access, and the gift of their time. Mr. Yala, could you please pause? Could you please mute your line? Thank you, sir. Or whoever is moderating this, please have people muted. Okay. So it is important for you to define what metrics or what measures you are going to put in place to help manage your time, what techniques are most effective for your own part of the world, and how best you're going to use that. And then it is also important for you to understand that the settings that you're in, the boundaries that you operate in, be it at work or your personal life, will oftentimes determine how things should flow. So here's what happens. If you live in a part of the world, like I travel often to East and Central Africa a lot for work and for personal things. And here's the interesting part. I can go to a place like Rwanda. Let me pick that since those are the folks on the phone. I can go to Rwanda and schedule a meeting for exactly 2:30 and leave my hotel or my apartment at 2 o'clock and still get there, go through security and do everything that needs to be done and be set and sitting down for my meeting 5 minutes before it starts. Okay? Now, I can do the same thing if I'm in a place like Nairobi, Kenya, or in a different part of Kenya. Why? Depending on the time of day. I can't just get up and say I'm going across town and expect to get there in 30 minutes, even though it's a 3-mile drive. Because once the road blocks, it is blocked and only the Lord can open it up. I mean, you would need a Moses to literally come in. And that Moses oftentimes in a place that we call Nairobi traffic is, is time. Over time, people begin to just fizzle out and it goes. Now, when you go to a place like Nigeria, then everything, throw the rule book out. Because even though it's a 2-mile drive and there's no traffic, all it would take are just two human beings that can't be patient with each other. One would just park his car in the middle of the road in front of the other one, and two of them sit down. The one would turn off his car and go and sit down and say, hey, come on, pass, let me see. There goes your meeting. You left 30 minutes, you left 30 minutes in advance. So when I have meetings in places like Nigeria, I plan 1 hour in advance to be there. I think about it, okay, this is going to take me a 30-minute drive, but I start moving at least an hour and a half before. Why? I want to get there. If I get there early, I have my phone, I have things that will keep me busy, keep me engaged until it is time. Why? Because not only do I want to present myself as a time conscious person, I also need to respect the time of the other individual who I am meeting with. I remember having a meeting. I'm not going to mention the country right now just because for some people start taking it very personal. I had a meeting with this individual in government. We had a scheduled time for the meeting. I believe it was 10:30. And I went there. I was there like an hour before, went through security because I was going to the Senate and all of that stuff. Sitting down in this individual's office at 10 o'clock. This was when the meeting was set to start. 10 o'clock was supposed to start at 10:30. I was there by 10. Believe it or not, 4 p.m. in the evening, I was still sitting down in this individual's lounge or waiting area. Why? And it was kind of funny because I just saw all kind of characters just coming in and walking in, and this individual would just come out, look at me, and just be like, I'm coming, just give me 1 more minute. It took almost 6 hours late conversation, and it was so rushed because there was no time to discuss the details of what needed to be done. And it was like, can you come back tomorrow? And I said, no, I can't. Why? Because I understand that my time is my life, and every hour taken away cannot be returned. I can double up to try to make up for it, but it doesn't matter. Anything I can accomplish in 1 hour, I can accomplish in any 1 hour. So why would I want to lose previous 1 hours because I'm going to try and make it up in the future? How do you protect your time? How do you nurture your time? How do you block your time to ensure that the settings and the expectations of your boundaries, of your environment, how do they help intermingle with that? And how do you define what you focus your time on? It doesn't matter who is calling, and it doesn't matter the purpose for calling. If you're not a child that came from my loins, and I'm so blunt about that, if you're not my partner in life, you will not be able to reach me between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. Why? Because technology now allows me to send you to voicemail or block your call right in my sleep. Because that is the time that I need to recoup. That's the time that I need to refresh. That's the time I need to regenerate. So why would I want to spend it and be talking about things that are not even valuable to me or things that are detrimental to my health at that point in time? We need rest, because if we cannot rest, we cannot be optimized in anything that we do. Which is a perfect segue to get to the third point, talking about your mental and physical well-being. We had a session, I think maybe about 2 months ago, that focused on your mental and physical well-being. And if you've not listened to that, I'll encourage you to go to our YouTube channel. I think it's been uploaded there. And if it's not, let us know and we'll try and get it out to you. You need to emphasize, I cannot say this enough, you need to emphasize your self-care. You need to prioritize taking care of yourself. It's like regular exercises, adequate sleep, and being mindful. And when I mean mindful is paying attention to what your body is telling you at every point in time. You know, I have some people close to me that they're just saying, you're always flexing, or you're always traveling, or you're always, I'm like, maybe you see that as flexing. I do not, because there are times my body tells me, Omo, slow down. Or my body tells me, if we keep going like this, you'll soon be calling a doctor or you'll soon be hospitalized. Why? Because when I work, I work. When I'm committed to doing a thing, I give it my very utmost best. I am like going on overdrive, and it doesn't matter if it's a week, if it's a project I'm working on, I want to get it done. But working around certain things, which are my professional life and my public life, do not intermingle with my personal and private life. Two different things. You have your private and personal life. You have your professional and public life. It is important for you to understand the difference in order for you to prioritize what time should go into what. There are certain times of the day that I set aside because I want to use that time to meditate and pray and think and mentally prepare myself for the day. There are times that I need to go to the gym and work out, and maybe I want to spend 30 minutes that day because I want to focus on cardio, or maybe I want to just spend an hour or two just doing weights and trying to do something around strengthening. What is my focus for that day determines the time that is available to do anything. But remember, those are not my professional lives. That's not my public life. That is my personal life. That is things that I need to do in order for me to become who I need to be, live long, be strong, be able to go. Beatrice Mungodioko, can you please mute your line? Thank you. Right? I mean, otherwise, if we all just think about just doing everything we want to do, then guess what? I can just go to the gym, drop my body there and say, I'll be back in 2 hours. Please make sure that body's fully worked out and I'll go somewhere else. But we're not created that way. We have just one life, we have one body, and that one body engages everything that we do. So how do you prioritize your time around your health, around your fitness, around your wellness, about your mindfulness? Do you love to travel? When it is time for me to travel, it simply means that I want to detach from work completely. Like, and usually when I travel, I go to places where I am not available. Like literally, I am not available. If I engage anything, it's because I choose to, or because it is such a priority that I think it is fundamental to my future. But you will not see me carrying a laptop, sitting down on a resort or somewhere on a boat or doing work because let me tell you something. If you were to fall down and die, while your family is still planning your funeral, I guarantee you that your company, if you're somebody who is employed somewhere else, or even if you're the founder of the company, they will already start thinking about hiring a new CEO or hiring of somebody to backfill your position because life goes on. So you have to prioritize your mental and physical wellness. You have to ensure that you take care of yourself. And you see, when we talk about vacations, people always think about these expensive, luxurious experiences that you have to have going to wherever it is that matters to you. But here is what I need to tell you. A vacation is simply stepping away from the void that organizes or focuses on your work. That is you taking time to do nothing but cater to yourself. Okay? It doesn't have to be anything expensive. It could just be doing a staycation in your own home. It could be going to rent an Airbnb in your own city. It could be a road trip to go see, a games reserve or go say hello to a friend or go spend time with your family in the village. Whatever that is, it should not bring you back more stressed than you left. A vacation should be a time for you to disconnect, recharge, and then reconnect. It is important also for you to pay attention to what I want to consider to be cultural stigmas in different parts of the world around mental health. Now, if you come from parts of like the United States or a certain part of it's a big deal now. The question of mental health, we have celebrities and we have key important people who the conversation is all around their mental health and all of those. And so there it is important. But let's go back to somewhere like Nigeria. You now say, oh, my mental health. The Nigeria that I grew up in, they'll say, I bind that spirit in you that is saying you have a mental problem. No. My mind, body, and soul and spirit have to be solid. I don't know. My soul comprised of my mind, my emotion, and my will. They have to be at peace at all times. My body has to be healthy. My spirit has to be connected. So for all of that to happen, I must make sure that I pay attention to what, in this case, like I said, cultural stigma. Somebody might not understand it, but it does not change the reality. That's who we are. That is how we were designed. That is our nature. That is our framework. That is how we were created to operate. That is why nobody can operate with 7 hours of, nobody can operate 7 days a week without sleep. It is who you are. In fact, most times after about 16 to 20 hours of lack of sleep, or if you go 2 days without sleep, you're physically awake, but your mind has checked out. Why? Because it is very important for you to be healthy, mind, body, and soul, your emotions, your will, everything. Otherwise, you start getting agitated about little things. Somebody comes and walks by and says, good afternoon. No, you're like, what's good about the afternoon? You know that this person has had too much coffee for the last 36 hours. Bro, calm down. Everything is going to be okay. All right? So it is very, very important that irrespective of what your society, your culture, your environment talks and sees or believes mental health should be, you must understand that it is about your mind, your emotion, your will. That's your soul. It must be about your body. How do you take care of that to ensure it is nurtured, to ensure that it is nourished, to ensure that you can be able to be around for the long haul? Now, the next thing I want to talk about, which is the fourth element that I want to talk about, is being flexible and being adaptable. Being flexible and being adaptable. What does this mean? For some of us, we just believe that time is time. For those of you who are Christians or who have read through the Bible, you realize that it says something like to this end. And for those of you who are not Christians, whatever faith you believe, it doesn't matter if you're a Muslim or you're an atheist, it doesn't change the fundamental principle of what I'm trying to discuss around time. There is a time for everything. There is a time allocated for everything. You know, this evening around, I was supposed to go out around 5:30 to meet up with someone, and somehow that changed. And what do I do then? I decided to sit down and do some work. Okay, why? Because you've got to adapt. You've got to move things around. During the day, we have to work. We've got to get things done. That's why we go to the office between 9 a.m. in the morning and 5 p.m. in the evening in most parts of the world, because those are considered to be about the most productive time of our day. That is when we're most alert. It doesn't matter how much of a night owl you are. The truth of, you might do a lot of your important work at the middle of the night, but the truth of the matter is that the most people that you want to collaborate with, engage with, and work with do not operate at that time. So yes, you can do some individual digging, some research, some studying, some planning, and bring it all to bear when you come together, but there is a time for everything. There's a time for individual contribution. There's a time for collaborative delivery. There's a time for organizational growth or whatever it is that you want to call it, but be flexible and be adaptable. And this flexibility and adaptability we're talking about does not only refer to your work and life dynamics, and we're talking about post-pandemic now, but also in everything we do. In every aspect. Is it dealing with your children if you have kids? Is it dealing with your parents if you have parents? Is it co-workers, your bosses, your subordinates or direct reports? Is it your noisy neighbor? You know, I remember moving to go visit with my daughter in California, and she has names for all her neighbors. The neighbor upstairs, she calls them Stumpy or something like that, because for whatever reason, in my head, I thought they had like a trampoline that a kid was jumping on. That's the only thing that makes sense. But why would you be jumping on a trampoline in an apartment building and all your neighbors downstairs are just hearing all this noise and racket? Then the one next door, she calls them Jessica and Brandon. Whole different story. So can you imagine? And she's somebody who likes to spend that time of the evening to do a lot of work around ideating and creating music and art and all of those things. But she gets drawn into this insatiable world of different people doing different things because it's just when it's convenient for them, and it inconveniences everybody else. If you work in a global organization, you will realize that just because you live in Nigeria does not mean that you have to set meetings at 10 a.m. Nigerian time. You expect me to join that meeting, that means you're telling me to wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning. How is that going to work? And let's assume you have somebody else who's a part of that team in China. What about if you had somebody in Sydney, Australia? What if you had somebody in the Middle East? You have somebody here in Kenya, Nairobi. How are you going to coordinate all of that? You've got to be sensible. You've got to be flexible, and you've got to be adaptable when it comes to the evolving nature of work, especially with people working remotely and all of that. Nowadays, as the head of an organization, do you realize that I very deliberately do not respond to emails after work hours? Because if I sent an email out that goes to any of my direct reports or any of my employees within the company, they feel obligated that, oh my God, he wrote, let me go respond. If it is not something that is critical to our operation that has to be addressed right now, it can wait till tomorrow. In fact, the beauty about technology now is that I can actually write the email, respond to it now, and put a schedule to send it at 7 in the morning. So that way, somebody is not receiving an email at 3 o'clock, receiving an email at 9 p.m., and all of a sudden they now get into solution mode. No, I should be a model. I should be a role model on how I want to see the culture of my organization evolve. And so I must also be respectful, because it used to send me insane in those days. When I get calls from family members or from friends, they will call you at 3 a.m. in the morning. And back then, we didn't have the iPhones and all the nice tech we have. So we have like the Blackberries and some of those flip phones, and the thing will ring. Your soul will wake up and connect to your body, and you will come back and say, what was that? Somebody is calling you to say, hey, my guy, or bro, you know, the way this our country is now. At 3 a.m. And you're trying to tell this person, you know, it's 3 a.m. in the morning. They're just like, I didn't know. Anyway, like I was saying, they just brushed the issue aside. So what I started doing was, that's why I am so passionate about my do not disturb. I just keep it to myself, and that's what it is. Do you understand my point? Because it is very critical for you to understand this. If you don't understand it, you find yourself struggling. So you have to be an advocate for a flexible schedule, being able to adapt to change without compromising your well-being and the well-being of others. Number 5, leverage technology wisely. I've talked so much about D&D. Anybody who talks or relates or connects with me on a regular basis knows that you can't reach me at certain times. If I want you to reach me unconditionally, I actually make changes to my phone settings or whatever it is so that you can be able to reach me at that appointed time. So learn how to use, if you have an iPhone, you have an Android, there are tools that are already set in there, from your calendars for scheduling, you have free tools out there like Calendly, you have Zoom platforms, you have meetings, you have all these tools available to you that you can leverage to really truly manage your time in a way that it does not impact your health and your well-being. Do not disturb for me is not it. I set this thing, I don't know, months ago, and it is still there. I'm sorry, not months ago, years ago, and it is still there. If you don't know how to do it, just Google. Google is your best friend. Sometimes people ask me questions, and I just said, ask Google. Why? It's a free tool. It's available to every one of us. And today, with artificial intelligence, with AI available, you can ask anything and you get a robust, comprehensive answer. I used the word one time and somebody asked me, what's the meaning of that word? I mean, this person took time to be messaging me back and forth to ask me the meaning of the word. In my head, I'm thinking, the time you're asking me the meaning of this word, you'll have just copied it, pasted it in your, in your web browser, boom, and you know exactly what it is. But the time that you've invested in trying to reach me to find out the meaning of that word, Google is your friend. That's all I can tell you right now. If that's the biggest lesson you want to learn about leveraging technology wisely, remember to take advantage of those free tools that are available to you. This would help you to be an enabler rather than a disruptor around the people that you work with. There are several challenges around things like digital burnout that you must be attentive to. and you have to think about how to unplug. This is one of the biggest problems of our generation, and also one of the biggest benefits and solutions in our generation. But how do you find a healthy balance? There are times that this must be turned off. Like when I say turned off completely. If you ever hear my phone ring, it's because I'm expecting an important call. And maybe that's why I'll leave it on. But when it's time to go to bed, in fact, what I do, I notice at some points that some of the phones we have will automatically turn themselves on after a while, especially when you have them plugged to charge. So what do? I make sure it's fully charged before I go to bed. I unplug it, put it aside, and then I use a device like an Echo Dot or an Alexa device to remind me or to set an alarm to wake me up at a certain time. So that way, when I go to bed at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, or if I'm busy and I don't go to sleep till 12 or 1 o'clock or whatever it is, and if I decide that morning I don't want to wake up to 9 a.m., I truly don't want to be disturbed at 9 a.m. by anything. So my phone is completely off the charge, off everything until 9 a.m. when my Alexa device says, "Good morning, Dala." You have to know how to avoid digital burnout. We are constantly on our phones, we're constantly on our laptops, we're constantly on the go, and with every action and interaction that we do, there is always an engagement with technology or digital platforms. You have to be aware that I own this thing. This thing does not own me. I promise you this, solemn before God. If you don't show up on Facebook in 24 hours, nobody's going to miss you. If you don't update your Instagram or go do your daily dance on TikTok, except if it is your job, nobody is going to miss you. I use all these platforms. I use Facebook, I use Instagram, I'm not big on X and all. I use LinkedIn. Those are the ones that are important to me for my work, for relationships that are important to me, and of course, just to send, little things out from time to time. For the life of me, I don't understand TikTok. As a matter of fact, I actually went there to TikTok and created an account. The same thing with Snapchat. So if you find me on Snapchat and you're sending me messages, you're sending me snaps and stuff, I will never see it, just so you know. If you find my name on TikTok and you send me messages there or links, I will never see it. You know why? I never log into those platforms. Except I go on some of those platforms and I just get annoyed because I'm like, I can't just sit down and be Facebook and Instagram when I have to go and post things or do something is enough of a chore for me. So every platform you have, it doesn't matter if it is a WhatsApp platform and you're using your statuses to send messages out to empower people or whatever it is that you do, if you're one of those who are on the other platforms, make sure that you control that time. Be intentional about what you post. Be specific about who you're trying to reach. That is the only way. You can't just sit down and just start scrolling. Eh, 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 eh. Kanye West. Do you know what Kanye West said what? And you know the beautiful thing? Because of the way artificial intelligence works and these algorithms, they pay attention to the same things that you look at all the time. And before you know it, they're right in front of you every time you pick your phone. So guess what happens? You get sucked in. Now, let me share a very funny story with you. I was watching I was watching this little clip. It was like a 1 or 2 minute clip online, and I'm sure most of you have heard this song, Kasongo, yeah, yeah, or something like that. Kasongo, Bonawewo, or something with the warthog. And I watched it and I thought it was hilarious. And I never knew that warthogs were that fast. I remember watching Timon and Pumbaa when my kids were young and never knew that they were really that fast until I began to watch these things and I just started laughing. And then after that day, till today, I will hardly go on social media without Kasongo song showing up or them showing me videos of warthogs. When did this even begin? When, when did this begin? to a point where a friend started calling me Kasongo because this thing became so ingrained in my mind, that I can just sit down while I'm working and I'll start humming Kasongo. Yeah, I'm just like, oh my God, what is happening? So before I knew it, the nickname Kasongo stuck. And I mean, I'm, if anybody calls me Kasongo on this call, there will be problems. Okay? You realize that some of us, we may be born again. But you see, when they said take off the, take off the, the pastors here will correct me. They say take off, the old man and put on the new man who is and all of that stuff. And some of us, you think you just throw it away, and some of us we folded it and kept it in the closet in case we need it, we go and retrieve it. So those are one of those moments. Okay, so it is important for you to pay attention to digital burnout, because sometimes you'll find yourself scrolling aimlessly, being entertained. And don't forget that all these people whose videos you're watching and clicking and liking and forwarding and sharing, they are monetizing that activity, making money at your own expense, at the expense of your sleep and rest. So you start scrolling at 2 a.m. in the morning because you woke up to go look at the bathroom, to use the bathroom, and then you just say, hey, I saw a notification, let me check what it is. 2, before you know it, where the time go? So when I turn off my phone, it is turned off. It doesn't matter who is calling, what's going on, that thing stays off. Okay, except if I have something to do at that time of the night that requires me to get up and engage. And the same thing applies even during the day. It is important for you, I can't say this enough, that you are an enabler with technology and not a disruptor. And it is important for you to make sure that you unplug to avoid burnout and take care of yourself mentally, physically, because after you're gone, those posts are still going to be online. The 6th item is paying attention to your community and support networks. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but every one of us has a degree of stress that we deal with, but there's a value in building relationships, a support system around you, both at home and at work. Now, let me tell you something about me. I can sit in my room, in my apartment, in my house, in wherever I am for the next 48 hours without interacting with any human being, and I'll be fine. But that is my nature. That's how I'm created. That's how I'm wired. That's how I operate. Now, I can go out in public and be like, oh, yeah, what's up? High fives and all of that stuff, because I have enough energy to engage that during the day, or during certain events, or during certain types of work. But once that is done, I need to come back to Shiloh. I need to come back to my secret place. I need to come back home where it is quiet and peaceful. I need to spend time with my family, with my kids. I need to spend time with those that I love. I need to spend time, if I'm at work, with those that I work with around certain things. It doesn't matter if it is just going out to grab some coffee, or going out for a drink, or going out to lunch. Being able to have that support network is critical. And why is this important is because the people who operate with you in specific environments also understand the challenges of that environment. And so they can be able to tell you, bro, yo, look at it this way, deal with this that way. Or, oh yeah, I'm also dealing with the same thing. You now find out that, hey, it's not only me that is going through this bala blue. It's not only me that is going through this town hall of difficulty. It's not only me that is finding it difficult to make to pay my bills. It's not only me that is aware of the societal challenges that we deal with. That gives you a platform for some empathy, but it also gives you the support that you need at every point in time. So it is so critical for you to make sure you pay close attention to your network and build it in a way that it is strong enough to support you. And this network we're talking about is not just a random network. You have to make sure that you pay attention to cultural and environmental factors that help you to be successful in that environment. In Africa, it is different. The role of mentoring in Africa is completely different from the role of mentoring in the United States. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? The way we do things in one part of the world is completely different from how it's done in other parts of the world. But there is one thing that I always encourage everybody to do, to have a 360 view. I call it 360 because at every level that you are, except if you're on a playing field, except when you're on a playing field, everyone, even those who are your peers, who are at the same level you are to the left or to the right, there is a support system that comes from there. Those slightly higher to you, from the 2 o'clocks and the 10 o'clocks, there's a support system that comes from there. Your mentors, those who have gone to places that you're aspiring to get to, there's a way to connect. Those who you are trying to empower, those who are up and coming, you have to make sure that you're internally connected to every level in your sphere. That will help you be a lot more efficient, because some things that you are trying to solve for 2 years, somebody has already paid the price of spending those 2 years to gain the knowledge and can hand it off to you within 2 minutes and allow you to implement it in 58 minutes, meaning in 1 hour, you can solve a problem that other people are trying to solve for 2 years. How do you go about building your network? For everybody, it is different, but it is important for you to pay attention to your culture, the importance of your community, and how it impacts everything else that you need for you to be that successful. The last piece I want to talk to you about is continuous self-reflection. Continuous self-reflection, meaning that you've got to take time to check in with yourself and evaluate what is working and what needs to change. You can't just keep going. That's why if you work in organizations, most organizations have what they call quarterly reviews. Every 3 months, as an employee or as somebody who works in the company, somebody says, okay, you're working towards your annual goals, you're making success, you're reaching the milestones, you've got to do this for yourself, whatever timeline works for you. For me, I do it monthly. I look at things like my finances. I look at things like my personal goals. There's somebody on this call who helped design if you look at, anytime I turn my phone on, you'll see it says something RPM. This was designed about 5 years ago because this was my 2025 goals. We're about getting into 2025, which means, you know yourself on this call, I need a design for 2030. If you're on the call, I will know if you're listening. It's going to be RPM 2030, RPM 2.0, 2030. Okay. And we'll discuss it in detail. I'll call you. Now, I'm using this as an example because that's my wallpaper. It is everywhere. When my phone is locked, it still shows up on the other end. Why? Because I have to be constantly reminded of what it is that I'm trying to do. And if I self-evaluate and realize I am not making progress in one aspect of my life, I try to make changes. There's one thing I do every year. Some of you have seen me post it on my statuses, and you might think it's funny, but I am dead serious about it. Every year, I go through my phone in December, the last week of December, to start deleting the contacts. All right? I start deleting contacts because it's been 365 days, and this human being is not adding value to me, but taking up storage on my phone. Even though it's paid for, I don't want to be constant. I don't have to scroll through 1,000 people to look for a certain person. You understand what I'm trying to say? So whatever I can do to optimize my life, minimize disruptions, and to create a safe space for me to pursue my goals, I do. So what is it that you need to do? What are the timelines you need to set? What are the metrics you need to evaluate and measure yourself by? Be it at work, be it your personal life, or whatever it is. And for me, I have an internal clock when it comes to my health that I know I need to stop. There's a certain way my body feels at certain times, and I just know, Dala, stop. And I know it is one of two things. It is either work-related, because at that time, the way I feel will determine if it is a work-related issue or if it is a personal issue. And I know I either need to slow down completely or I need to disconnect, depending on how severe those symptoms are. So for years, I used to think, oh, now I'm sick or something. But once I now notice the symptoms, I immediately take action. I proactively engage it. It's either I'm just going to buy a plane ticket and fly somewhere and check off someplace on my bucket list, or I just take some time off and just relax if I have nowhere else to go. So you've got to make sure you do that. And you have to pay attention to promoting a growth mindset, openness to evolving priorities. Your priorities may have been set 1, 2, 3 when you started, but as the race begins, you'll find out that it's going to be 3, 1, 2. Or maybe 3 is not even important at all, and what used to be 7 becomes 2. What are your priorities? You've got to be flexible enough to truly recognize that. You understand? So let me go through the 7 points again. Number one, key ingredients for a balanced life in 2025 and going forward are: number one, you have to define personal and professional priorities. And I believe we all started that exercise at the beginning of this call. Number two, pay attention to time management and setting boundaries around things that are distractors to ensure that you're not disrupting others, but you're also building yourself. Number three, pay attention to your mental and physical wellness. Health is wealth. You've got to stay healthy. You've got to stay engaged. You've got to stay joyous. You've got to stay happy. You've got look on the bright side of everything. Make sure you're healthy in mind, emotion, and will. Make sure you're healthy in your body. Make sure that you're healthy in your spirit. Make sure you're healthy all around. Because once you have health, everything else becomes a possibility. Number four, you have to be flexible and adaptable. Culturally, relationally, professionally, whatever it is, adaptability and flexibility are very, very important for you to maintain a balanced work life. Number five, leverage technology wisely. Technology is a tool, not a taskmaster. Your technology is a tool. It does not own you. It should not control you. So when you need to unplug, unplug. When you've got to leverage it, leverage it. Make sure that you're always focused, because your goals will remain in front of you if you are if you're somebody who is truly attentive to what you want to accomplish. Number six, have a community and support network around you at all times. It is very, very, very important. It is important to celebrate successes. It is important to go to when things aren't so great. It is important to go to when you need support of whatever form, be it through prayers, be it financially, be it emotionally, be it mentally. You must have a network that supports you. And then lastly, you have to continually reflect, self-reflect, to make sure that you're truly aligning towards these things that need to happen. Okay? So it is very, very important to prioritize your well-being in 2025 going forward. Many of us have things, I've seen this trend. Every last year was a bad year for most people. You hear people say things like, 2024 show me shege. Hey, promises ahead, 2025, full speed ahead. By this time next year, you hear the same person say, 2025, show me shege. 2026 is it. But if you look back in retrospect, this person has been saying the same thing since they were old enough to speak. So remember that years are just a metric to measure time. But you must remember that time is life, and life is a continuum. So if you hit your goals by January 2nd or January 3rd, or December 4th, does not matter. It is your life. You're in a personal race. Was there anybody with you in the hospital saying, okay, we're waiting to who's going to come out of the womb first between me and you? No. Even identical twins in the same womb come out at different times, have different experiences all through their lives. Co-joined twins, the same thing. So your passions will oftentimes drive and determine what you need to pay attention to, but it is very, very, very important for you to prioritize this going forward. So make sure you define your action steps, the things that you need to do around these 7 items that we've discussed. Very, very critical. Be sure to implement one strategy from this session immediately. What are some of the, that's why at the beginning of this call, we said, identify 3 to 5 things that you think you're going to prioritize and work on. What are some action steps that you need to take? Start working on those tonight. I mean, as soon as this call is over, don't get up and say, that was it. That session was we can celebrate the session later, or we can criticize the session later, whatever it is for you. But take some, go work on something, one thing. Identify one thing that you can start working on that is a strategy that you've learned from this session that will help you to become successful as you continue this journey going forward. So at this time, Victor or Fumi or whoever it is that's moderating this call, I have been talking nonstop for the last 1 hour. So I am going to pause now and give you the opportunity for those of you who want to ask questions, because this is probably, maybe, I'm not sure yet, might be the last session we do. Well, it's definitely the last session we're doing this year, but I don't know. I don't know if we're going to pick this up again in 2025, but let's see how things pan out. So I think at this point, I'm just going to give it back to you. I'm going to address anywhere from maybe 2 to 3 questions, depending on, so feel free to post questions in the chats. Feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand so that the moderator can call you for you to come up and speak, okay? So over to you. Victor, Fumi, Kemi, are you on the call?
Yes, sir. If you're also comfortable dropping your comments in the chat box, please feel free to do so. Questions, clarifications, anything. There are no right or wrong answers.
Okay. No questions, or let me see if I can. Are there any questions in the because I had to maximize the screen so that I can see everything that's going on here. Okay, there's a question from Precious, and the question said, "How does one self-reflect in a way that it improves one's life?" How does one self-reflect in a way that, you know, if you're in a place, Precious, if you're in a place where you can speak up, can you come and can you give me an example of what you're trying to say? I get the general context of what you're saying, which is a given. The reason why you self-reflect is to improve. But give me an example of what it is that you're trying to ask, so that maybe I might be able to answer you in a little bit more intentional way, because you're asking a question.
Okay, greetings, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, so basically, I'm asking because I've heard of self-reflection. I do it, but I don't know if I'm doing it correctly, because I've heard people, yeah, I've heard people say it's good to take time to reflect, ask yourself questions. How could you have done? Maybe think about an action in the past and think of how you could have done it better, maybe emotionally. Oh, what actually triggered me there, and how can I do it? So somehow I've heard of reflecting, but I don't know if I'm doing it correctly or how to do it better. So basically, that's what I'm asking.
Excellent question, and you answered it rightly. You're doing it the right way. The essence of reflection is to look at what you've accomplished to see if you're going about it the right way. So think about it this way. If you're traveling from point A to, if you're traveling from point A to point C, and by the time you get to point X, you now stop and you just keep going, there's a problem, because your destination was C, right? And you've not made it to C yet. The only way you can check to see if you're making progress is if you find yourself at B, and the next logical thing will be at C, right? Now, when it comes to self-reflection, let's pick a simple example. Let's say I want to complete a master's program. Let's say that I want to complete a master's degree, okay? And then, but I set this goal at the beginning of the year that I want to complete a master's degree program, and somehow just never came around to doing it. Or I find out that I'm missing the timeline and I want to self-reflect. What do? There are prerequisites that I need to complete before I'm admitted into the program, but I have not completed those prerequisites because I'm busy working. Question is, what is taking my time that I have not yet sat down to work on those prerequisites? Oh, I spend too much time on social media. So while I'm self-reflecting, I discover that social media is one of my distractors. So I cut down time for social media or sleep. It's one of my things. Some people sleep as if they died in the process. Like when they turn off, it's like they transition in person. But the interesting thing about it is sometimes you've got to cut back on sleep in order to accomplish certain things. Sometimes you've got to withdraw from friends because you've got to accomplish certain things. Sometimes you've got to cut back on how you spend because you want to accomplish certain goals. Sometimes you need to change certain things in order for you to accomplish certain objectives. That is what self-reflection is. Self-reflection is you evaluating, inspecting, and questioning your actions to see if they are drawing you closer to your objective or away from it. And if they are, then what are the things that I should continue to do that will get me there sooner? Or what are the things that I need to stop doing in order for me to get back on track? You understand? So you have to have means that you have to evaluate, measures that you have to use to quantify or qualify if that action makes sense or not. And then you've got to have metrics that show that you're making progress or not. And if it is working, keep doing it. If it's not working, stop doing it or change it. Or if it is not working, abandon it completely and start something different. That is why Einstein said something important that most of us quote all the time, which is, it is insanity for you to continue to do the same thing over and over and expect a different result. I hope that gives you what you need. And I see that someone was asking in the chat here, I think it's Eudora or Chai, saying in a scenario where one is focusing on 3 to 5 things in the year, but 2 or more of those things have conflicting or clashing timelines, how do you handle that situation? Well, you are omnipresent. You can be in one place at the same time. Now, if you have several things that you have to do, then I will encourage you to think about it this way. What of those, all 3 things cannot be number 1 priority. It's not possible. There must be something that differentiates each of those things. Maybe one of those things is an enabler. Maybe I need to make more money, or I need to prioritize my family, or what is the highest priority for you at that point in time? So those 3 to 5 things have to be prioritized 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Always. Even if all 5 feel like number 1, you still have to put them in an order. So that, because you might decide to do number 5 in that list, which feels like a number 1, but you'll find out that that one, which was number 1 that you never did, is actually an enabler for all the other things that you need to do. And then secondly, another way to, and then what you can do is, if you're able to get all those things done in that specific order, which is great, but if you're not able to do it, you still have the option to be able to delegate certain things. So the time you're spending is not really in implementing and executing, but rather inspecting, validating, and passing on, depending on what the task is. And that's why you have the need for partnerships and networks and all of those things. If you're having 5 priorities that have the same equal level of importance and require you to be engaged in all 5 of them at the same time, I don't know anybody or organization that is able to do that. So it is something that you might have to look at. The answer to that question is prioritizing the 3 to 5 things in a way with timelines for each of them. Or you might say, okay, I want to engage all of these things, but at what point are you engaging which? That is what you need to pay close attention to. I hope that answers your question. And then Victor, you're asking, would you speak on the AEI model for him, please? What is AEI? Victor? Victor, are you on the call?
Yes, Doc, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
The AEI model, which you took us one time, I think some couple of years back, talks about assess, evaluate, and implement, basically referring to the guy who talked about self-reflecting.
Okay. So you can talk about it if you want, but simply that's what it is to assess where you are, execute, and then implement. So you do that, I'm sure you assess, you evaluate, and then you implement, meaning that you look at what you're doing. Is this working? Great. If it's not working, you change it. If it's working, great. If it's working, you do what you need to do, but you execute on the modified version of what it was that you evaluated yourself through that process. I hope that gives you what you need. All right.
Yes, I do.
You are very welcome. Now, we'll take one more question because I'm looking at the people on the call. I have some of my elders here. I'm trying to respect them. After the meeting, they'll call me and tell me that, hey, you these young boys, you don't pay attention. And look, when we talk about youth nowadays, it's very relative. Okay. When you're in your 50s, those of them who are older than you by 2 months, you're still a small boy. It's an African thing. All right. Victor, go ahead.
No, I wanted to ask if Eudora will be comfortable sharing any of the 3 to 5 goals that seem to be clashing, if we could help in any way. Using practical ideas. Is it like running a master's? You talked about personal and professional goals clashing. If you have a professional goal, which in the eye of your organization, you ought to prioritize, why you as an individual, you have a personal goal, which also you want to prioritize, and both goals are clashing. At such points, which takes priority? If you'll be willing to share.
Victor, can I step in here? I would say that is great idea, but I think that's for the benefit of the larger group of people that are here who have different interests, different focus. I'm not sure if this is the best place for us to have this conversation now. But since Eudora is part of our PTN alum group, I think you guys, those of you who are part of the PTNX cohort, you can have that conversation in that group. And I think you have some amazing, brilliant minds in that place that you can all work together to try and craft a plan for Eudora. And Eudora, if you want to pull me in, if you want to schedule the call with the group, and if the time is good ahead for me, I can be able to join you as well so that we can help you hash through whatever it is that you need to do. But I think that's a smaller group. We can be able to work on that faster so that we can be able to respect the time of the other people that are also here with us on this call. All right. So, Victor, I hope is that okay with you? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm okay with it. Thank you, Doc.
Awesome. Great. But so far, I think we've had a good session, and I'm trying to be very respectful for people's time. And I want to say thank you for those of you who joined the call because some of you just had to put aside your plans and other things you were doing to jump on this call. And I'm glad that it's been recorded, which is going to be available on our PTN site. We're gonna send the link out again from whatever platform it is that you connected to this, so that way you can be able to go, watch it. And I will encourage you to listen to this over and over, so that way you can be able to truly come up with a plan that works for you, and you can go ahead and execute on it. Okay. If you have any questions with regards to this topic or any related topic we've talked about, please feel free to leave me a message on social media. If you have direct access to me, meaning if you have my phone number, feel free to send me a message. If time permits, we can talk about it. If time doesn't permit, I will send you 1 or 2 nuggets from the little I have learned in life, and I hope that it helps you going forward. Okay. So with that, I would say I would like for us to wrap up the meeting, Victor, if that's okay. Big shout out to, we have some of our elders from Port Harcourt, Dr. Pastor Songo White. I see you on the call. I see folks like Lewis. I see Erastus. I see some of my guys are coming in this call, so I have to, behave myself today. All right. And also just a piece of information here for you, just so you notice, from 2025, there's a great tendency that we're going to be bringing back some of the things we do PTN on different platforms. In fact, we started ideating around the notion of potentially doing a retreat in East Africa, meaning that all of us, irrespective of where you live in the US, in Central, East, South, West Africa, we're all going to converge in Rwanda and just go there for like a few days to have a retreat in a quiet place, learn, empower ourselves, and go forward. We've not finalized on the plans. We don't even know if we're still going to do it, but this is me just, putting it out there so that for those of you who might be interested to start thinking about this, so that we can see how much of a hit we have. So thank you very much. And Victor, back to you.